Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll be your astrologer this week, and this is going to be the weekly astro weather for the week of November 16th through the 23rd, 2025. I hope you guys are well. I'm excited to talk about this week and all the transits that are taking place. We're going to be putting a spotlight on the Sun in Scorpio, making a trine to Saturn in Pisces. Now, if you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, give me a thumbs up, like this video, consider sharing, and do subscribe to the channel. We're getting closer and closer to 50,000 subscribers, so any interaction with the channel helps the channel grow. And while you're here, make sure you guys drop me a comment below and let me know how you're feeling with the watery vibes this week. Also, consider joining my memberships if you want to support me as a full-time content creator. We've got all kinds of perks for the different levels, and if you get in on any of the levels, you're going to see my videos before they come out on their debut days. I'm here Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays using tarot and astrology to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. Now, do join me here live on Friday. We're going to be here at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. That's 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. And I will be doing live tarot readings on the channel. So if you guys would like to get your cards read, definitely come and hang out. It's always a good time. Now, just a few heads up also on the channel. As many of you guys have seen, I put out a lot of tarot stuff in this last week. So definitely check out the November tarot scopes. I did an unboxing video on my brand new Sword in the Rose tarot deck. Talk a little bit about the process of making it, the influences and all of the ups and downs of that process. And I do a preview where I go through the entire deck. So if you guys like it, consider picking one up. I'm filming this on Friday, so you guys are seeing this on Sunday. But as of Friday, we only have about 30 decks left. So you want to order it before they're gone. Once they're gone, we're not going to be reproducing this deck again. And likely they're going to sell out probably before Christmas. So they've only been on sale for about a week. I'm kind of blown away with the feedback and a lot of the support. So thank you guys so much if you picked one up. I hope you enjoy that. Definitely check out my Etsy store. You can click the links below in the description if you want to head over there and pick up one as a Christmas gift for yourself or for somebody else. And I do recommend ordering the deck before the 5th of December. So because we're dealing with shipping and international shipping, processing times, all that stuff. So definitely pick one up before the 5th of December. All right, so on to the show. Obviously, if you're new here, welcome. My name's Candice. I'm a Western astrologer. I also am an intuitive tarot reader. I like to incorporate that into my work. And for those of you guys who are Sunday crew, or those of you guys who are subscribers, welcome back. It's nice to see you. This is going to be for week of November 16th through the 23rd. And boy, oh boy, we are in for a heavy water energy period. I was kind of reflecting on this last week and I was like, yeah, I'm kind of in the flow. Okay, now I feel like I'm like underneath the waves. So I don't know about you guys, but even for somebody like me who has a lot of water placement, I'm like, my goddess, this has been a lot. This week's going to feel like a real fateful period because of the grand water trine that's going to be taking place. You're going to feel it all week long. This means that emotions this week are going to run a little deep. We're also going to notice that intuition is really kicking in strong. I guess that's the positive in all of this. And things are going to feel very connected on a soul level. So expect some shifts when it comes to how you feel about security, maybe your own personal growth. And the themes, obviously, at the tail end of Scorpio season is letting go. I won't sing you guys the Frozen song, I'm tone deaf, but you get the drift. So with this week, we're going to see lots of water energy dominating the skies. So it's going to feel emotional, it's intuitive. Maybe some of you guys are going to feel like you're being pulled a little bit more inward with some of the retrograde energy, really highlighting themes of family and healing old wounds. And the energy really supports growth because of the trine. We're going to feel some stabilized energy with aspects to Saturn. We're also going to be feeling a lot of retrograde energy this week. So keep in mind, in the midst of retrogrades, Saturn retrograde, Jupiter retrograde, Neptune retrograde, Mercury retrograde, it is really about reviewing rather than pushing forward. So watch for the insights that come from the quiet moments. Take time to ground out, meditate, rest, sleep, maybe do some journaling. Definitely stay hydrated and watch for some of the ugly tears because they do happen when we see some of these aspects. Now this week for the key transits that I will be covering, and if you guys stay tuned, I'll take you through the grand water trine and the trine that we're seeing between the Sun in Scorpio and Saturn in Pisces for all 12 signs. I also cover this aspect, I'm sure, in my horoscopes for November, and there's lots of good kind of information peppered in for the 12 signs. You will also see this week we're coming into a new moon in Scorpio. I've got you covered. That video has already been put out. So if you want to know what that means, what to kind of manifest, how to work with and roll with, I think, some of the punches of that Uranus opposition, highly recommend watching that video. And Mercury will come back into Scorpio this week too. So I did a Mercury in Scorpio video. If you guys haven't seen it in true retrograde fashion, go back, rewatch it, because now Mercury is dipping into a new area in your chart. But we're going to see on the 16th of the month that the Sun in Scorpio will trine Jupiter, and this is bringing luck and expansion. Then we will see on the 17th of the month, there will be a Sun trine Saturn. So the Sun in Scorpio will trine Saturn, which is great, having those kind of transits back to back. This is making the grand water trine, and this is adding structure as well as discipline. And then we'll see Mercury retrograde back into Scorpio on the 18th. Obviously, Mercury in Scorpio, intense thoughts, powerful feelings, lots of research, and a little secretive. And then we will see that new moon in Scorpio. Now, depending on your time zone where you are, it's going to be hitting on either the 19th or the 20th of November. And this is a powerful new moon, right? Trines to Jupiter bring luck. Trines to Saturn and Neptune create a really strong intuitive kind of punch. Oppositions to Uranus and Taurus means this is an anything goes period. We'll see this really over the next 2 to 4 weeks really kind of kick up, but new moons plant seeds for 6 months. So you really want to take a look at where that new moon in Scorpio is taking place. It's all about fresh starts when it comes to transformation and adjusting to physical or financial unexpected scenarios. Now that Sun will oppose Uranus in Taurus. That'll be taking place on the 21st, likely creating some curveballs and some money matter scenarios. We're going to see the Sun enter into Sagittarius on the 21st, and this is going to kick off Sagittarius season. So if you are a Sagittarius that's born this week, happy birthday. And this is a little bit of a livelier energy, especially having Mars and then the Sun also in Sagittarius. I do think it's shifting towards adventure. We're feeling a little bit more optimistic. We're willing to take risks and take chances. And we will also see Mercury in Scorpio trine Saturn in Pisces on the 22nd. And this is really great for reworking in the midst of the retrograde, restructuring, planning, reevaluating timelines, and also managing our budgets. Just really practical thinking is going to come from this. So we now start to see some of the same aspects that we saw at the end of October as Mercury was coming into shadow. So if you're in the middle of a Mercury retrograde, you're kind of feeling overwhelmed, communication is going to start to kind of get better towards the end of the week. And the Sun in Sagittarius will form a sextile to Pluto in Aquarius on the 23rd, really about empowered change, being optimistic about the future, opportunities to connect with like-minded people, focus on social connections and even traveling. And then at the end of the week, we are going to see Mars in Sagittarius begin to come into a square with the North and the South nodes. Now, you guys will probably start feeling this on Saturday and Sunday. But honestly, it's going to go into the beginning of next week. Not a fun aspect when planets square the nodes. It does reinforce the fact that we have to show up and make conscious changes in how we are navigating our lives. Getting out of the past South Node square in Virgo where we're too critical, getting into the North Node in Pisces where we're kind of more open and we're more willing to be maybe optimistic, possibly even really relying on our gut and our intuition a little bit more. But squares bring changes to our beliefs in this sign, Sagittarius. And we'll find that there's going to be some fated conflicts, right? Mars is the planet of passion. It's about desire, but it's also about standing up for what's right. Now, I do think we're going to see some potential for international conflicts this week. I hope I'm wrong. I don't like making these predictions. But I do think that we will see a period of really charged reactions when it comes to leaders, right? When it comes to legal matters, Sagittarius, when it comes to travel, and also, unfortunately, involving the United States. There is a possibility that we're going to see this kind of warlike energy where there could be some reactions or some conflict that could break out that could be pretty messy for us here in the US. So I'll be keeping an eye on that. And just remember, we're doing this deep dive with Mercury back in the shadow of where it started. So I want you guys to make a mental note. Go back to like October 24th through about the 31st, Halloween, right? Mercury is now retrograding through these same degrees. So likely, because Mercury is back in those degrees, it's making similar aspects to planets in Cancer as well as Pisces. We're going to see a review or a reevaluation of, whoa, where did I blow up? Where did I react? You know, where should I have listened to my gut? Where did I kind of flip-flop a little bit? And it's giving us an opportunity to rework the Scorpio area of our charts. So let's get into the feature for this video. We're gonna be talking all about the Sun in Scorpio coming into a trine with Jupiter in Cancer. Now, I heard you guys have gotten lots of feedback on the dates and stuff. Just off the bat, this aspect is exact on November 17th, 2025. But the good news is because of the range of the trine, because I'm looking at the trine being exact at 25 degrees, and then the sun's gonna continue to move into a trine with Neptune. Really, you guys are feeling this energy all week long. And I want you guys to go into this just keeping an open mind, remembering that Scorpio is about purge. It is about bringing up all of the gunk from the shadows. It is about dealing with things that we don't want to kind of acknowledge. It requires us to kind of look the shadows in the face and be willing to confront certain situations that we are afraid of. Okay, that is where the real focus is. Obviously, this week, Jupiter is retrograde, Saturn is retrograde. Even though the sun is trining these two planets and it's very positive and optimistic, the sun's the only one who's forward motion, and it always is. We don't see retrogrades with the sun or the moon. So it means that we have to kind of instigate some kind of change. The Mercury retrograde's helping us do the same thing. So as we see the sun in Scorpio forming these trines, I do think it can be very emotional. I think it can also be very eye-opening. And I think that we're kind of working through this Mercury retrograde period as we get into what will be the new moon and the Mercury cazimi in Scorpio to help us figure out which way is up, what changes we need to make. And it's very psychological in nature because Scorpio is kind of tied to Pluto. Now, this is beneficial for everybody, okay? So when we see trines that are happening to Saturn and Pisces, which is a collective sign, this means global empathy, global intuition. This is also about necessary kind of boundaries and borders. And then obviously Jupiter is going to represent growth, abundance, and emotions. So this will impact everybody, I think, positively if you guys can see the silver lining and you can work with it. But those who are going to feel this the most are going to be the water signs. So if you have any particular placements, I would say between 24 and 26 degrees, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces, you guys are going to feel this the most. And I honestly think it's going to be quite beneficial for you. But if you happen to be a Cancer or a Leo, a Scorpio, a Sagittarius, a Pisces rising in particular, because we're looking at Jupiter rulership, Sun rulership, you guys are going to feel that. So if you happen not to be any of these signs, still look at your chart. This is where it really pays to know astrology and to learn. Having any planets between 25 and 26 degrees of Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces is going to trine, so it's going to be positive for you. But if you have other planets that are at 25 or 26 degrees, you are going to be feeling an inconjunct, a square, an opposition. So pay attention to those degrees and check your chart. Now, the sun in Scorpio in astrology, really what this represents is depth and power, right? We think about the 8th house, the sun going through the 8th house. This does represent shining a light on the dark, illuminating things that have been kind of residing there, but now we have to confront them. So the sun in astrology deals with our core energy. This is really focused on transformation in this sign. It can be highlighting secrets and facing what's hidden, and it's really intense, and obviously it's about digging into the truth. I think the Mercury retrograde is about that too. It's a lot of uncovering, especially financial and kind of scam or kind of criminal related activities. So I think that this can be a week of some really shocking, surprising news revolving around criminal operations, anything connected to taxes, anything connecting to exposés and information coming out. And the sun in astrology can represent power figures. So this could be CEOs, bosses, this could be powerful men in the world. It can also be about leaders. Now, Jupiter in Cancer, which we're seeing all year long, really expands things. Jupiter is exalted in the sign, which means it is really, really, really strong. And it's really touching on the themes of Cancer. So it can be about home, family, as well as emotions. So it's really kind of bringing up the themes of growth coming from nurturing, growth coming from security, utilizing our intuition, and feeling luckier when it comes to personal matters. Now, Now, the sun forms a trine to Jupiter, twice a year. This is not an unusual transit. However, Jupiter in its exaltation and also the trine to Saturn at the same time is very unique astrology. So it makes November very potent because of this aspect. And in astrology, when we see a trine that's happening, this is a 120-degree angle. So we've got a planet that's in the same element, that's trining another planet in the same element. The energy feels easy. But these signs are not easy, right? The water signs are very deeply passionate and emotional and sensitive, and it can also be about releasing things. So with a kind of Jupiter energy of a trine, things flow without much effort. So generally we see positive kind of outcomes and harmonious kind of situations, but it also makes things very emotional. We feel very sensitive, especially around themes of Scorpio, which is about releasing and letting go. So when we see the element of water in astrology, it can represent more than just emotions. This could be talking about water-related events in the world. It could also be talking about our intuition and things that are going on subconsciously. So what we see in dreams, what comes up for us in meditation, and those gut feelings that are kind of tapping us on the shoulder, trying to get us to pay attention. So water is about feeling things deeply, and it's also about healing as well as kind of connecting on a soul level. So to see this grand water trine that's going to be happening this week between the sun and Jupiter, between Jupiter and Saturn, between Saturn and the sun, intense, but I think is actually really beneficial, and it's a good time to really commit to reworking and rethinking the Pisces area of our chart. Saturn in Pisces is, where am I not paying attention? Where am I asleep at the wheel? Where am I not dealing with my emotions? Where am I not sleeping well? And Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, reevaluating and rethinking home and living situations. So out in the world, we're going to see this manifest as a lot of people going, can I afford, Scorpio, to buy a house? What, potential challenges are coming up? Where do I need to be more cautious when it comes to moving, family planning, anything in regarding, financial situations revolving around home and family as well. And I do think we're going to see lots of talks about, what's changing in regards to lending and housing. So we've seen that. I've been talking about that in recent weeks. Now they're proposing these 50-year mortgages. I won't say anything on that, but I'll just say the Mercury retrograde is still doing its thing. So we're going to see realistically whether or not that's actually going to be beneficial. But we may see more themes revolving around, pivots and changes that's happening in terms of like legal matters, Jupiter, that can benefit, home buyers, or whether or not people are going to be moving or relocating. And also whether or not there is actually enough support and structure and guidance, right, of leadership when it comes to making changes regarding some of these Cancer themes. So all in all, I think that it's a supportive triangle that really helps with healing and growth. But for some people, it's not going to feel very pleasant. I'm hoping that you guys can tap into the kind of compassionate energy, the creative energy, see the silver linings, and really tap into the spiritual insights. If your gut is telling you, hold on, let's pivot, let's give it a little bit more time. Now, this grand water trine with the sun, in particular, I'm looking at the sun trine Jupiter now, that is positive because the sun is all about vitality. So if Jupiter is adding expansion and Saturn's giving structure, together this means that the support is really about emotional support, it's about emotional growth, and really applying some kind of discipline, that's Saturn. So this week we can actually build secure foundations in our personal lives. However, I think the Scorpio sun is really highlighting what's being unearthed and what's being brought to the surface to purge and ultimately heal. Now, if you're wondering how this might manifest, I'm optimistic that I think a lot of us can feel a little bit more optimistic about home and family. I think a lot of this is about gratitude for what we do have and not focusing too much on what we don't have or what we lost or what we're mourning. This is also going to be providing us with opportunities for healing. I think that will pop up. Some of you guys might feel like you're getting support in your new careers or in your career goals in general through utilizing your intuition. Others might feel like this energy is very powerful for manifesting security or financial changes or reworking your finances in a way that can make you feel more secure. So you have to look at where the water houses are in your chart. Something I was thinking about a lot was the fact that Jupiter and Saturn is retrograde. I think this is a wonderful trine, but we don't have a lot of support, unfortunately, with both of these planets being retrograde. And this is the one brief period of the year in 2025 that Jupiter and Saturn are a trine. So when planets are retrograde, that means that their energy is turned inward. And Jupiter retrograde is reviewing growth, maybe optimism, maybe education, travel, joy. While Saturn retrograde is all about reevaluating our boundaries as well as our responsibilities. Now, like I said, the sun is always direct, it's always pushing forward. So really this is about balance in when it comes to review and action. And it's a time really to kind of fix the inner foundations before we focus on expanding. One other thing I want to note is that this grand water trine is taking place at 25 degrees. So if you notice, we're going to see 25, Sun in Scorpio, 25, Jupiter in Cancer, 25, Saturn in Pisces. And this ties, if you follow degree theory, to the energy of Aries. So the energy is a little bit more of like adding a spark of action when it comes to drive and all of the emotional flow that's actually going to be taking place this week. This basically means that the water vibes are about deep feelings and intuition, but with that Aries influence, it's going to be really about us expecting and needing to take some necessary, bold, emotional moves. So some of us might act fast on emotions. Maybe that's like starting a tough talk or, protecting what's yours. And the themes are really going to be about the reactions that are coming up this week. That's kind of the catalyst for propelling us forward. So it can feel like some of us are breaking free from old hurts, and we have to do that with some kind of immediate kind of, energy or reaction. On a bigger scale, this might show up as quick responses to crisis, maybe even, defensive actions globally, like military moves tied to security or water-related events. So, going in and saving people in a rescue situation that could be dire, water right related things connecting also to pharmaceuticals. Neptune is kind of in the mix. This could also be some major changes that can be connected to military. So like I said earlier in the video, looking at the United States chart with some of this stuff, I think that there could be some things that are really starting to pop off this week that could be not so pleasant in the US. Now, I think that, for many of us, it's going to feel like it's a time to really focus on protecting the home front. It's going to be about reacting to threats with compassion. And I think for the most part, it's positive if we can utilize it this way. And we could find that we can really take leadership when it comes to healing, initiating new ways of nurturing ourselves, as well as kind of turning our struggles into opportunities for growth. Just remember, we have to think first before reacting or jumping in because Mercury is still retrograde. So what you guys are going to want to watch for with this grand water trine, and other things that are in play this week, my mind immediately goes to, okay, the trine is great, but we're starting to build into oppositions with Uranus and Taurus. So when you see oppositions like Mercury or the Sun this week opposing Uranus and Taurus, it's going to bring some surprises. We are going to find that, the fixed signs, they don't want to budge, they don't want to kind of give something up, and it's important to try to stay flexible. And that new moon is also going to oppose Uranus and Taurus, which could really shake up our plans, not just in the immediate next month, but for the next 6 months. So we want to avoid big decisions regarding finances, if possible, this week. Likely, it's going to pay to listen to our gut and to wait a little bit and wait for the Mercury retrograde to shake out. I think a lot of us are going to be having some big emotions and changes coming up regarding money. This could mean banking, who you're banking with, what you're owed, what you have to pay off, dealing with loans. We could see some major shocks in the stock market because the opposition between the Sun and Uranus is at 29, and that correlates to Leo. So we're going to see changes with how, leaders are managing debt crisis issues, how, major people out in the world are, playing a role in changing or rearranging the banking system, and issues coming up revolving around how to manage or fund financial matters. So to best work with this transit, number one is this is water, okay? So we're not going to see some of the action that we would traditionally see with a fire trine or with an earth trine. These things build subtly, and then all of a sudden it just kind of pops. So you have to listen to your gut. You have to focus on getting adequate rest and sleep. Maybe journaling about emotions can help, spending time with family at home, creating a safe kind of cozy home zone, and setting intentions for growth and security, but also recognizing that in order to really reap some of the benefits of those changes, we have to be willing to improvise. We also have to be willing to kind of let go of the death grip in certain ways of living and being. Now, if you guys can meditate more, stay hydrated, and be by water, sound baths, soaking, spas, saunas, all of these things will help. And also detoxing and kind of pushing or cleansing stuff out can be really good as well. And watch out for the ugly tears, because it definitely happens sometimes when we see some of these aspects. Now, globally and personally, it's going to be a little different. I think globally, we're going to see news revolving around water issues. So this could be, insight revolving around, health of water, quality of water. We could be hearing also that there is going to be new changes going on regarding around water protection, water rights. We're going to hear a lot about what's going on with the housing market and anything connecting to birth rates, anything connecting to family practices, and probably some very emotional public events. Now, like I said, healing themes coming up, so that will translate to how that's happening in society. And definitely, I feel like there's going to be a focus on mental health as we're seeing trines to planets in Pisces. But personally, this is a week for inner strength. Many of us might actually resolve some old issues and heal some old wounds, especially if it's connected to family or anything revolving around security. If you use this appropriately, you'll feel supported in the water areas of your chart. You'll feel better emotionally. Maybe there is some sense of feeling relieved because something has finally concluded or completed or come to an end. And even though it's painful, it's like, this has to happen. This has to stop now. And then we will find that confidence will begin to grow in our personal power. Relationships can deepen under these aspects, but I think that we really, with all the retrogrades, are having to reflect on the past, clear it out so we can move forward. So let's take a look at the week ahead. This is going to be for November 16th through the 23rd, 2025. So if you guys are watching this on Sunday, the 16th, happy Sunday to my Sunday crew. I hope you guys are doing well. Thanks for taking me with you throughout the week, whether you're doing your laundry or running errands. I'm hanging out with you at the gym. I appreciate it, and hopefully this can help you kind of navigate the week ahead. Now, as you guys are up on Sunday the 16th, the moon is in Libra, which means we are always going to be focusing on Venus. So for today and tomorrow, Venus is definitely going to be the star. And Venus is still moving through Scorpio, deep, passionate, sexy, but nothing's really kind of going on with Venus right now. She's not making any aspects to any planets in the sky, nothing. She is going to start building into what you guys are going to see, a trine with the North Node this week and a sextile to the South Node. So Venus is going to get stronger. But in Scorpio, we're dealing with feeling sometimes, scorned, or there is a feeling of secrets in relationships or intense relational matters, or, having to get to the bottom of something in a relationship. And oftentimes Venus in the sign, she feels almost as if she has been, she's been scorned. I guess that's the best way to kind of put it. So there can be some really intense relational dynamics that are at play. And what you will find is throughout the day, the moon in Libra is going to keep moving, and she's going to eventually come into an opposition with Chiron in Aries, and that'll be happening this evening. Something else that's going to be happening is the sun will form a trine to Jupiter today, and we will also see the grand water trine building because it'll trine Jupiter, and then the sun will start building into Saturn, a Saturn trine. So today, really through about Tuesday, is when you're going to feel this energy the most. And I think that I would really focus on the sun trine Jupiter. I think that that can be a day where we feel a little bit more optimistic, a little bit more confident. We can be feeling like, okay, things have been rocky, but at least it's going in the right direction. And the daily vibe is going to be balanced because of the moon in Libra, but sensitive. And I think mostly it's going to be that opposition that the moon is going to pick up later. Oops, sorry guys. Later in the day, let's switch it to the hour chart. There we go. And that's when the moon starts opposing Chiron in Aries. So that's going to be in the PM hours pretty late with that opposition. And obviously Chiron and Aries still working on our personal wounds where we feel rejected, isolated, or healing something, which can make it more difficult for us to relate and connect with people. That Libra moon, it wants to go on dates. It wants to spend time together. It wants to kind of get feedback from others. And unfortunately, with Venus being at a 12 and in Scorpio on Sunday, it does kind of indicate that some people are really sensitive because of, their buttons getting pushed, or some kind of financial complications, or some intimacy related matters. But even in spite of that, I think that with the sun coming into a trine with Jupiter, okay, so it'll trine Jupiter, and then it's coming into a trine with Saturn, Sunday and Monday are the healing kind of days. So what you want to do, I think, to best navigate this is recognize that relationship wounds can come up today, but the trine is really about bringing healing and optimism. And the best way to navigate Sunday is to talk things out and to try to do it calmly, because people are going to be very emotional and very sensitive. If we can really lean on that Libra moon, we can focus on harmony, and we can use the energy on Sunday for positive home improvements, family planning related things, anything revolving around also being a little bit more emotionally, I think, sound, especially with that support that's coming in from Saturn, where we're not just reacting, we're trying to be compassionate to the fact that people are going through stuff, things are changing, and really leaning on, you know, the Cancer area of your chart, where you may feel like there is some emotional security, or there is some family support, or there is some changes going on in the home front to help you navigate what can feel like a little bit of an uncomfortable time. Now, as we move out of Sunday and into Monday, we wake up in the morning on Monday and the moon is still in Libra. It's still slightly in an opposition to Chiron. The exact opposition is going to be overnight, kind of into the early morning hours, but we're still feeling a little bit of that kind of like relational pinch. Maybe you guys will be feeling it, maybe not. And then also something that's going to be happening is we will see that moon in Libra coming into a square with Jupiter in Cancer, okay? So that's a square, and Jupiter and Chiron are still in a square. So if you have anything around, 22 to 26 degrees of the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, Monday morning can feel a little intense because Jupiter is going to be the focal point of that square involving the moon. Jupiter makes things bigger. Moon in Libra is relational, so there could be more of a need to be diplomatic, working together as a team, talking to a therapist, having a heart-to-heart with someone. And it's going to bring up some very big emotions in the morning. Now, not only will that happen, but as the moon continues to keep going through Libra, it's going to eventually come into an inconjunct or a quincunx with Uranus, also an inconjunct and a quincunx with Neptune, forming a yod. So it's basically saying, okay, there is some uncertainty with Neptune at 29 degrees of the future. There is some pretty dramatic financial changes happening out in the world, Uranus in Taurus, and it's really putting an emphasis on Libra. It's like where there could be stress in relationships over money, or where it's pushing you to sit down and, talk to a financial advisor about budgeting, or where you're having to lean on other people and really express what you're going through. Libra really wants to remind you that if you're willing to, ask for support, or if you're willing to work with somebody, likely somebody can show up. And now Venus is starting to build into a trine with Saturn, so it could actually, through being a little bit more transparent or vulnerable, let other people in. And that's where it's going to start to also let the healing in as well. So on Monday, we will see that Jupiter moon square that's going to be happening first thing in the morning, so people can be a little bit more sensitive. And then we're going to see the moon continue to build, and it will come into an inconjunct and a quincunx with Saturn at the same time that the Jupiter square is happening. In the background, guys, Sun is still trine Jupiter and also Saturn. So, it's about kind of like coming to a realization that all good things sometimes come to an end, and we have to be willing to kind of depart and let them go, even though sometimes it can be painful. And then it looks like the moon will then come into the yod with Neptune at 29, Uranus at 29. The moon's going to hit 29, and that's going to be around, I'm Central Time here in Texas, around 2 p.m. So that's going to be a time where, there is some critical turning points in relationships, and also when it comes to the unknowingness of the future in finances. And we can feel like there's, like nails on a chalkboard when stuff is at 29. So I think that yod forming is really significant. I think the other thing to watch for is that then the moon is going to change signs, and it's going to go into Scorpio. So that'll be pretty much within an hour or two. 4 p.m. Central Time, moon is now sitting in Scorpio. So there's a vibe change. Now we're not relational kind of togetherness. Now we're focusing more on, coming into what will eventually be the new moon in Scorpio. So for the next couple of days, it's a dark moon phase. Moon in Scorpio is intense. It is about, sometimes being a little emotionally prickly. There can be crisis and purging and fear and endings and stuff that can come up with this Scorpio moon. And now that we have Pluto in Aquarius for the next 20 years, every time the moon goes through Scorpio, we get an extra powerful punch of that Scorpio energy, because it will come into a square with Pluto. And it's squaring in a superior square. It's squaring from the right-hand side. So it basically means that it is pushing us all collectively to, start talking about the future, talking about change, talking about, it could be, Aquarius could be politics, it could be changes in friendships, changes in our goals. And we've seen pretty much the last week or two, just a major financial kind of shakeout. And I think that we're going to continue to probably see this until we get these planets out of Scorpio and when we're no longer seeing all of these oppositions to Uranus. So we could see a further breakdown for some stuff that can be happening market-wise. Anyway, once that moon goes into Scorpio, it squares Pluto, and that's going to be happening in the early evening hours. In spite of all of this, okay, which I know sounds gnarly, that sun in Scorpio is now trining Saturn and Jupiter. So there is some support, thank God, although Saturn is retrograde. There is also some trines to Jupiter, which should make us enthusiastic and kind of optimistic, but it's also retrograde. So I think that a lot of people are going to be going, okay, I thought things were going to have support, and what support levels, whether that's literally, in a financial sense or figuratively in an emotional sense that we thought were there, may not be there. And then also we may realize where we've become maybe a little enthusiastic or a little too optimistic, or maybe we have been kind of assuming the best and, we kind of overshot in a way. So that key transit for Monday is going to be the sun in Scorpio trining Saturn in Pisces. It's just, I always get miffed when I see really good transits and then there's other things going on at the same time that kind of take away from that. So this is why I'm telling you guys that even though trines are beneficial, even though Jupiter is beneficial, even though Saturn provides structure, to me, I read this and I go, ooh, it can mean that for some people, we're looking at it as, okay, well, this is a dead end, this isn't working, this is all getting flushed out. We have no other choice but to adapt and change, and we have to be willing to confront some of these issues. Moon in Scorpio, Pluto in Scorpio, Sun in Scorpio, we're not just looking at Pluto in Aquarius, right? We're also looking at Mars. And so Mars is in Sagittarius, it's going through a mutable fire sign, in the same sign as the Mercury retrograde in Sag, building into a square with the North and South node this week. So that's going to be about escalating legal matters, travel conflicts, weather-related issues, international issues, potential conflict that is going to be coming up regarding importing and exporting and trade. Tariffs, any issues revolving around where are goods coming from, how is it getting there, how is it being transported, as well as I think a lot of this being connected to some new financial things that are going to start happening, which could be impacting trade. And then in turn, impacting international relationships. And we're going to see a little bit more of some boxing going on the world stage with leaders, I think. So putting it all together on the 17th, lean into the sun in Scorpio, trine Saturn. Try to adapt, try to be open to change. Know when the dead ends come and when it's time to just be we just have to walk away from this and leave it alone. I do think that there could be some tense kind of morning decisions that'll happen on Monday. I also feel then intense emotions take over as the moon goes into Scorpio and squares Pluto. The good news is that the trines to Saturn means that structure really helps ground you. So Saturn in Pisces is knowing when to take a step back. If you're getting emotionally overwhelmed and you need some alone time, if you need a nap, if you need to take a long hot bath, do those things. That can really help you. Go and buy a bag of Epsom salt this week. It's going to help get you through. And to navigate Monday, we want to avoid overthinking. I feel like this is more about intuition kicking in and logic. You had your chance. Astrology is now taking the wheel. And trust your gut when the moon hits Scorpio. There's going to be some feelings that's, about, okay, what we need to kind of detox and let go of. Set boundaries and power dynamics, and also recognize that part of the Mercury retrograde is about us kind of going, is this the worst? What am I afraid of? Why not just end it? Or why not just have that conversation and draw the line and tell people where your boundaries are? And if you've been afraid of doing some of these things, the astrology is kind of pushing you in the direction of doing it anyway. So that moon will come in with a square to Pluto. That'll be happening in the early evening hours. And then the moon is going to continue moving through Scorpio overnight. Now this is going to take us into what's going to be Tuesday, the 18th. And when we wake up in the morning, moon is still in Scorpio. Nothing's really happening in this department. However, what we are going to find that's going to be happening today is that as the moon goes through Scorpio, it's going to come into conjunction with Venus. Now, obviously, moon doesn't like being in Scorpio. It's too emotionally kind of overwhelming. very secretive and private. Venus in Scorpio is very passionate, very sexy, but it can also be some drama in the love or relationship department. Unless you happen to be, I would say, a Scorpio, sun, moon, or rising around these degrees, you might like it. You might wake up, feel extra, beautiful, attractive, abundant, but a lot of other people are going to go, this is a dark moon. Things are getting shaken out in the relationship or financial world. Things don't feel good. I'm scared. And it's really also triggering this Mars, which is continuing to build into a square with the North and South node pretty much by the end of the week, but you're going to feel it during the Scorpio dark moon for sure. Now, this is also going to be a time where the moon will be building throughout Scorpio into a trine with the North Node in Pisces, which is encouraging release, let go, right? Ruled by Jupiter, which is retrograde of emotions, of the past. I cannot tell you how many clients over the last 2 weeks, I feel like I'm almost like a parrot. I just keep saying the same thing over. I'm like, if you keep holding on to the past, you're not going to be able to move forward. These emotions are getting stuck in your body. It's not allowing you to open up. It's not allowing you to heal. You're afraid of ditching the past and you don't know how to move forward in the future. But if you can't deal with the past, you're never going to be able to receive what's coming. I think a lot of people need to hear that. And this is coming from somebody who's got some of the same aspects. I have Sun trine my Mercury and my Venus in Scorpio. My Sun and my Mercury in Scorpio trines Jupiter in Cancer. So I'm born with these aspects. And I have found the only really way to navigate this is just to kind of recognize and go, okay, something is ending. I have to celebrate this ending. It's basically the fertilizer that's laying the ground for something new that's yet to come. And if I hold on to the past, I'm not going to move forward. And you will really see that if you follow that advice over the next week or two, it's really going to open up new doors for you and new opportunities. So give yourself the opportunity to mourn. You can be sad. You can clear it out. I'm going to give you the okay to do that while the moon's in Scorpio. But after that Scorpio new moon, we have to really be focused on change and we have to be really willing to improvise. So on the 18th, Mercury retrogrades back into Scorpio. Okay, so it's coming back into Scorpio where people are going to be feeling, I think, quite moody with this dark moon. But some of you guys will like the moon conjunct Scorpio. You're going to go, well, I like the sexy energy. I like the vibe. I like the fact that it's intense and passionate. And it looks like that the moon and Venus are going to be meeting in the evening hours. And that'll be at 15 degrees of Scorpio. And then Uranus at the end of the night, around 10 p.m. Central Time, Mercury goes back into Scorpio. And what's it at? 29? What's it opposing? 29, Uranus? Go back to what happened the last 10 days of October because it's retracing some of the same themes. And it's also now trining Neptune. And I remember telling people when Mercury was in opposition to Uranus, it was in Gemini. Okay, so we saw Mercury in Sag opposing Uranus in Gemini. Now Uranus is back in Taurus, so it's more about financial upheaval and changes with the planet, changes with the banks. And now Mercury is back in Scorpio, which is dealing more with debt and issues revolving around intimacy and fear. This is some big financial stuff at 29 degrees. And the fact that Mercury is going to trine Neptune means some people are going to really wig out about what's happening and other people are going to just intuitively tap in and go, okay, actually, I'm going to wait. Now is not the time. I'm going to wait. Let's just let the fear kind of flush out and we'll see what happens. Dark moons, new moons are notorious for bottoms in markets. It's just what happens, especially as we're kind of in the midst of Scorpio season. We saw that with the full moon in Taurus. So I think you're going to see a continuation of that. To be honest with you, whatever is happening on the 18th at night feels pretty hectic. I think the daily vibe really in the beginning of the day is about deep connections and faded feelings as the moon is approaching that conjunction to Venus. And also at night, the moon is starting to come into a trine with the North Node. So it is basically saying, okay, it's time to flush things out, let it go, trust your intuition. And then as the day goes on, thoughts are going to turn more inward. It's going to be more probing as we're starting to see the moon going through, the later degrees of Scorpio, coming into, Mercury retrograde back into Scorpio. And I think the only way to navigate Tuesday is to really reflect on what we're afraid of. This could also mean reflecting on relationships. Mercury, the mind, is back in the same sign, Scorpio, as Venus. Maybe what we're attached to or holding on to or thinking about or reading or people that we're following up on is actually not helping us move forward. And there is a need really, I think, to get closure or to kind of clear certain things out on Tuesday. I think this is also a good time to communicate honestly, but we have to do it very gently because with Mercury in opposition to Uranus, to me, this feels very staticky, and it's not even exact yet. It's starting on the 19th. It's starting on the 18th on Tuesday. You're gonna see it on the 19th on Wednesday exact. So communicate honestly, try to be gentle, listen to whatever intuitive pull is coming up for you. So it looks like at night, Moon and Venus meet at 15 and they trine the North Node. So it can be about uncovering or having certain conversations. It's at a Gemini degree, 15. About clearing out the past or maybe uncovering, what the lesson is. I think Mars being the dispositor of all the Scorpio is, but what did we learn, And a lot of people are getting really angry. I've noticed people are very angry. They're like, why is it they won't learn? Or why don't they get it? Or I'm so mad at myself. I keep going through the same lesson. And I'd be like, okay, that's it. Get it out of your system, because once you get it out of your system, then you can start to move forward. And that doesn't mean we're disregarding how we feel or not acknowledging what's kind of coming up or being realistic about it. But at the core of it, I think really, if you get frustrated enough and you get sick of things enough, that's very Scorpio, then you enter into Sagittarius land, which is like, what did we learn? Okay, we've been through hell and back. Okay, now we're gonna take the lesson, we're gonna apply it. I mean, we can be feeling like, yeah, things have been difficult last week leading up to this point, but we're willing to instigate change. Now, that change is going to come more so on Wednesday. That's going to be the 19th. And that's going to be a combination of the fact that in the morning, we are now starting to see the moon coming towards the sun, where we're going to have that new moon in Scorpio. So what you'll see is another trine that's going to happen between Saturn and Neptune. It's loose, but it's building. And also Jupiter in Cancer. So I try to look at this as optimistically as possible, guys, you know me. But I look at this dark moon where it looks like in the evening hours, the moon is going to trine Jupiter retrograde. It's also going to trine Saturn retrograde right before we get into the new moon. And this is like in a way going, all right, there are some really kind of staticky things that are taking place. But what if we just have a clean slate? What if we just start over? What if we just not give up, but learn to just, pick our battles or recognize or realize where we're hitting a wall and it's not actually going to serve us moving forward. That's how I'm looking at it. So on Wednesday, the moon in Scorpio trines Saturn in Pisces. It trines Jupiter in Cancer. We're able to reflect on the past, think about how we want to do things differently, retrograde. And then Mercury is retrograde in the sign of Scorpio, and it's in opposition to Uranus all day. So Wednesday, shocking news, surprising turnarounds with finances, issues revolving around business, transactions, problems with travel. I think we will also probably see some shocking things revolving around banks. There could be interest rate changes. And Mercury and Scorpio trine Neptune in Pisces now at 29 degrees earlier in the day as well. It's great for intuition. However, we're still in the dark moon phase. So people are kind of grouchy, right? Moon in Scorpio, people are grouchy. Venus in Scorpio, relationships are a little staticky. But in spite of all of this, there's really great aspects to Jupiter and Saturn. And I feel like this is kind of going, this is a blessing in disguise. This relationship ended, but it needed ended. It's toxic. It's really difficult. But you know what? It's going to be better for me emotionally to walk away. Or financially, hitting a major hurdle, and this is difficult and challenging, but where is it building resilience? Where are we learning through Scorpio energy to be resourceful, to be scrappy? That's what I like about Scorpio energy. It can fish something out of the trash and it can turn it into somebody else's kind of like prized possession, or it can recycle something, it can transform something. So I think a lot of people are getting really freaked out with what's going on financially in the markets, and there could be opportunities for some people to be kind of going, all right, there's a lot of volatility, things are breaking down, I'm gonna buy in. Not a financial advisor, but I could see some of the beneficial, aspects between Saturn and Jupiter that could be beneficial in the future. So the daily vibe for Wednesday, intuitive highs for sure, but there's going to be some surprising, shocking communication issues, some breakdown issues. This is a day where, and I believe, if I'm correct, and I was talking about this last month, I was like, yeah, Uranus in Taurus, like that's going to be things relating to crypto, and Mercury is going to be about marketing and data and information and also getting things on and off of exchanges. And we saw that last month where there was some issues going on. So I'm wondering, is it going to happen again? Could this be some kind of data breach that's involving information regarding, people's finances or things connected to Social Security, or stuff that's going to be connected to a major credit card company that's, you know, undergoing some changes regarding their financial regulations. Possibly that can happen. But all of this is being connected to Mars. Okay, so I'm thinking it's more shocking court decisions, major changes regarding institutions and funding, particularly colleges. Is this going to be some shocking surprises and studies that are being released? Are we seeing some major changes in terms of people traveling and whether or not they're getting like reimbursed for their traveling if there's extreme weather? Here's an example. This last week, we saw all of the people who were working for TSA, and we also saw a lot of people who were working for the towers for the flights. A lot of people stayed. They weren't getting paid. They didn't know if they were going to get back pay because of the government shutdown. People were still continuing to work because they wanted to ensure that people were able to fly safely. Just this week, we saw some of those members at I think it was at the White House, were being given $10,000 checks. Right? So interesting. They knew they weren't getting paid in the middle of the Mercury retrograde. They were willing to take the chance. It was scary. They didn't know what was going to happen. And in some cases, you know, Scorpio energy can be about receiving what's owed. And these oppositions to Uranus can mean suddenly, boom, okay, I didn't expect that money to come in. Or, you know, there is just some check that just appears, or I got a bonus, or the loan went through, or my credit card, you know, got approved for a higher, you know, kind of ability to spend. But still, I mean, I think for some people, they're going to be quite shocked and surprised with some of these oppositions this week. So intuitive highs with surprises. Emotions will build as they're coming into a release later in the day. So to navigate Wednesday, you have to stay open to insights. It's almost like I said, there is no logic. Mercury is retrograde. Why is this happening? Where is it coming from? And I think a lot of this is about overriding fear, listening to our intuition, but also keep in mind that there's some argumentative energy that can happen with Mercury in opposition to Uranus. We want to avoid arguments if possible. We want to try to use this energy for creative problem solving if we can. Now, depending on where you are in the world, like I said, overnight, we're going to be coming into what will be a new moon in Scorpio. And that new moon is going to be at 28 degrees. So where I am, Central Time in Texas, it's happening in the middle of the night. It's 1 a.m. And we've got Mercury cazimi with the moon. We've got Mercury cazimi with the sun. Very rare astrology, guys. And on top of that, a new moon is going to seed something that's going to dramatically change for the better part of the next 2 to 4 weeks until we get to the next new moon. But new moons play out over 6 months' time. So this really will build until about, you know, spring of 2026, which I believe, looking at this, Mercury is the dispositor of the South Node. So it's about clearing out what? Jobs, health. We're going to hear so much over the next 6 months about wasted funds, wasted taxpayer funds, criminal, financial related information, exposés and documents of things being exposed where there's been manipulation, I think, going on a federal level. I think it's also going to be targeting financial crime. I think we're going to see probably an uptick in people wanting to use ways to better secure their finances. And Mercury could also be about IDs, anything connected to identification and documents. And so how there's going to be some changes going on with technology and how it's going to be making people feel either uneasy or maybe that they're adapting to change. And so, of course, this last week, we saw Apple comes out and says, well, now you can tie your credit card, your passports, your IDs, all of these things into your phone. Huh. Interesting. So, you know, I look at that and I'm like, how are people going to react and respond to that? Obviously, yeah, a lot of people are going to say, who cares? I already have an ID. I have a passport. I'm already in a system. But when you're linking it to things that are now connected to your money, this makes me kind of wonder. And I think the fact that this is being proposed or rolled out in the midst of a Mercury retrograde makes me really wonder if there is something that's hidden that is yet to be revealed. It makes me wonder if this is actually smart and safe to replace digital documents. Are we going to be moving in a direction where things like mortgages and home deeds and anything connected to, you know, slips for your cars, other physical assets, are they all now going to be digitalized? Are they going to be stored somewhere on the blockchain? And then on top of that, what is this radical, crazy restructuring that's about to kind of come up with the financial system? Because I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to happen. You're going to see this within about 6 months' time. Everything is getting prepared. It's getting in order. And I say it's going to be tied specifically to homes because of the trine to Jupiter and new laws that'll be connected to that. It's also tied specifically to some kind of surveillance, because Saturn and Neptune is, what's kind of going on globally and what can be seen and, what people have or what they don't have, and also what disappears. So this is a very powerful new moon. Go watch the video. I think the positives are the trine to Saturn and Jupiter. I don't like saying the negatives, but the challenging aspects to this certainly is the fact that this is all at 28, which is a Cancer degree. So we are having to really go back and I think, work or rethink or finally deal with the past and how we're bringing up this information over the next, 2 to 4 weeks and then 6 months, and the impact that that has on finances. Big, big, big. All right, so watch for Wednesday. It's quite an emotional mess. And then as we're getting into what will then be Thursday, when we wake up, depending on where you guys are in the world, we're waking up to a Sagittarius moon. So the moon is no longer new. Now it's growing for the better part of the next 2 weeks. Do things get easier? Maybe, sure. I mean, with the moon in Sag, at least we're going to be feeling a little bit more jolly. We're a little bit more optimistic. People are going to feel like, okay, now we can maybe make changes and we can make a shift and we can, we can travel, or, now we feel more knowledgeable, or now we feel more optimistic. So with that moon in Sagittarius on Thursday, we're looking at Jupiter, and Jupiter is retrograde, still in trine to Saturn, okay, coming into a trine with Mercury. So I do think that it's still emotional, but Sagittarius wants to go out in the world. Jupiter in Cancer says, let's stay home and bake cookies. It doesn't necessarily want to be super adventurous. And I do think that most likely there's going to be a lot of people around the end of this week into next week who are going to go, I don't feel safe traveling. And I don't like saying that. That's not me fear mongering. That's people going, I don't think that things have quite gotten worked out with the airlines yet. I don't really feel that there is as much security, or I just feel more comfortable staying home and, doing things that are going to be a little bit closer to home. And that's going to be the issue that we're going to see between Sagittarius season, having Jupiter retrograde in Cancer. Now on Thursday, the moon leaves Scorpio, it goes into Sagittarius. When it goes into Sagittarius, it starts coming into a sextile with Pluto and Aquarius, which is great. It can be more social. We can also find that, we're a little bit more willing to connect with other people, to plan parties. We're willing to travel to people. We're wanting to share ideas with others. But that's a fleeting transit, okay? So as the moon continues throughout the day, it's going to continue to move through Sagittarius. Here's the challenge. The challenge is that now we're going to be starting to see on Thursday hold on, let me look at my notes here. Now we're going to start to see that there is this building energy. Where is it? I know I had it here somewhere. With Mercury retrograde. Okay, it's coming back towards Saturn. I guess that's pretty much it. There's nothing else really going on Thursday. I thought there was some other big transit. Trine to Saturn. Oh, the sun's building into an opposition with Uranus. I think that's what I was missing. Sorry, guys. Brain fart. Moon goes through Sag all throughout the day. It's not making aspects to anything. Okay, that's pretty much it. So in the evening hours, however, we will see the moon coming into conjunction with Mars. And for many of us, depending on where you are, I'm in the States, obviously, it's going to happen overnight. So with the sun in opposition to Uranus building, boom, boom. This is ruled by Venus, which is in Scorpio. This is ruled by Mars, which is here. This could be when we begin to see some of the issues going on with travel and the airlines. I don't like saying that, but I think that could happen. And with Mercury having opposed Uranus, the sun coming into an opposition with Uranus, people start wanting to bicker over physical things, food, retail, things connected to resources, stuff dealing with debt and lending. And those 29 degrees are critical. So overnight is more what I'm focusing on with what's going to happen on the 20th going into the 21st. So, I mean, I'm not going to say it's a quiet day. I mean, the moon changes signs, it opposes Uranus. There's a lot of emotional kind of upheaval. So I think on Thursday the 20th, the key transit is the new moon, right? And then we're going to see, then the moon's going to oppose Uranus and Taurus. And we're going to see the Mercury cazimi, which is going to be some kind of information, some idea. Traditionally, the cazimi is seen as something good. It's something positive because it's relaying an information. And this is the halfway point through the Mercury retrograde, where if you're like, what is going on? When are things going to stabilize? Usually the Mercury cazimi is like, okay, now we're kind of figuring things out. The problem is that when the cazimi happens, it's going to be in opposition to Uranus. The positive is that it's going to trine Neptune. So if you can tune into your intuition and kind of hold out, and be optimistic. Maybe you can see it through and things will improve. I don't know. 29 degrees makes me feel like there's going to be something really chaotic that's going to happen with the world leader. We'll see, because it's Leo. Okay, so on Thursday, obviously new moon is happening, so we have fresh starts. There's going to be some surprises with the opposition to Uranus. Clarity only comes through intuition. Things are not going to make sense. So whether you have to sit down and, meditate, pull a few tarot cards, decide that you're going to sleep on it before you make any emotional reactions, especially over physical things, money, spending, purchasing, loans, be very careful here, because clarity is only going to come through your intuition on Thursday. And we want to set intentions revolving around transformation. Scorpio, it's also about change. Obviously with Mars in Sagittarius, I'm trying to embrace this being like, okay, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I'm trying to look at some of the things that have not worked out or things that have not gone according to plan and gone, how can we figure out what was the lesson here? And how can we take this and really utilize this and go, what do we need to do differently? And what do we need to be restructuring? And maybe not being so hopelessly and gloriously optimistic, being a little bit more realistic, especially when it comes to timelines, planning, things that we didn't see, that kind of stuff. And I would also say that this is a day where, expect the unexpected. So we're going to move now into what will be Friday the 21st. And when we wake up in the morning, things are quite heated. Moon is coming in conjunction with Mars. All right, so this is where you're going to see there's fights at the airport. There's people, having some drama, on a college campus. We're going to see there could be some weather that's dramatically impacting travel. Some real big news regarding tariffs or trade information. Obviously, this is all tying to Jupiter, and Jupiter is retrograde in Cancer, which has this theme of we're going to look out for our own. And whether in your own life you're like, okay, I don't care what's going on in the world. I care about my family. I don't care about what's going on with politics. I actually want to see that there's actual change regardless of what party is involved. Jupiter in Cancer is how is it impacting the people at home? The positive is that maybe we start seeing leaders around the world that are recognizing and realizing just how much their policies and their decisions are really impacting people's ability to feel safe. Whether or not people can afford homes or pay their rent, whether or not people are feeling like they're safe enough to have a family or live where they're living. I'm hoping that that's going to be what manifests, but I also I'm realistic that I know when Moon and Mars come together, people speed, you have angry drivers, you have people that have knee-jerk reactions, and Jupiter in Cancer is influencing all of this where people are reacting to not having safety and security. People are, focusing on protecting what's theirs, and like people will do whatever they have to do or feel like they have to do in order to protect their own interests. So this is a day where, sure, many people are going to go, you know what, screw it, I'm booking a flight. Sag. Catching flights, not feelings. But there's also, this square between Mars and the Moon that are now starting to build into the North and South node. So it's basically saying to many people, okay, you can make some rush decision regarding traveling or moving or relocating or decisions involving legal matters, school, what have you. But there's going to be repercussions. And I think that with Jupiter retrograde, it's saying maybe that hasn't worked in the past. Maybe just saying, you know what, that's it, screw it. I'm moving away from this city or this country. It hasn't worked in the past. Maybe where we have decided that we were going to pick up and suddenly move or suddenly travel, having done that didn't work in the past. And we have to really take a time out and really reevaluate where our emotions are influencing some of the decisions that we're making. Now, on the other hand, Moon Mars can be sexy for some people. They could feel more passionate. They could feel more excited. They could feel more optimistic. So is there going to be, I think, better energy than what has happened earlier in the week? For sure, because at least Sagittarius is like, I'm not afraid of anything, like, let's go. Challenges, this is exactly when the sun is opposing Uranus. So this tells me there is going to be something that's going to happen around the 21st that's going to be some knee-jerk reaction or in regards to travel or international trade or international relationships that's going to have huge financial implications. Sun in opposition to Uranus. That's going to suddenly go flip-flop and it's going to change things. And now we're in a moon that's growing. So on the 21st, what you're going to find is that, that Sagittarius moon conjunct Mars early in the morning, you're going to feel probably a little irritated. You're going to feel like you have to quickly kind of get things in order. Don't rush. Take your time, okay? Especially when it comes to Sagittarius things. If you're dealing with legal documents, if you are booking a trip, if you are planning something revolving around publishing or anything in regards to, self-promotion, any Sagittarius stuff, take your time. There's no need to rush because the retrograde is saying slow down, think more about timing, and also be more mindful of how we're kind of communicating things. With that sun in opposition to Uranus, it makes me feel like those of us who are patient this week are going to actually be the big winners because it all comes back to Venus. Venus is going to meet up with Mercury. So a lot of people who have had, I think, some turbulence financially this week, if you're getting shaken out, you're getting freaked out, you're getting scared, and you're like, this is terrible, I'm going to get out, I think that some people might get out too early. That's just my opinion because I think that's part of the game is that they're trying to manipulate things and kind of scare people into either losing everything or deciding that they're done or they're spent, they're tapped out financially. And then I think we're going to see some stuff that's going to begin to grow. So watch for, I think when the moon starts coming into a square at the north and south node, it's going to be at a Gemini degree. God, this chart is it's just lit up. It's like Trump's going to say something really stupid this week. I hate to say that, but knowing that the United States is a Sagittarius rising, knowing that all of this is going to be triggering his aspects and it's going to create a full moon in his chart, that he's going to get agitated or there's going to be some move that's going to be made to protect things or individuals or even the country that could have some pretty big financial implications makes me kind of wonder. And I'm going to continue to keep telling you guys this. There is going to be some kind of turbulence that's going to happen. It may not happen exactly when I'm telling you the day because Mars transits, they can start building up a day or two before. Usually I'm good within about 2 or 3 days. I get the prediction, but something's going to happen here. And I think that it's going to send some people into a tailspin and it's going to be some knee-jerk reaction that happens that's not going to be beneficial for the United States. So then we're going to see on the 21st, the north and the south node receives a square from the moon. And this is about something that is said or something that's about transportation or something that is connected to maybe speech-related laws, possibly. And stuff that's involving media, some media coverage of like a big legal matter or some stuff involving a document. What is positive though is on the 21st, we're going to see that the sun, even in spite of the opposition to Uranus, it is trining Neptune. So it's basically like Clown's World. It's like, oh my God, how could this be happening? What's changing? Why is this breaking down? But we have to just recognize that part of what we're kind of watching here is like a simulation. And like there are powers out there that are going to feed on your fear or your anger or your frustration or desperation, certainly with trines to 29 degrees of Pisces. We will also see that sun oppose Uranus, and then obviously Scorpio season concludes later in the day, and we are going to see the sun go into Sagittarius, which I'm just so ready for Scorpio season to be done. I think it'll be much easier to start moving into Sagittarius, at least in the beginning. So at around 8 p.m. Central Time, sun's going to go into Sagittarius. Mars is in Sagittarius. Moon is in Sagittarius. People aren't going to give a shit about what's happening now. People are going to be like, okay, time to take action, time to get something done. And at least we're going to be out of the fear zone of where we've been in Scorpio season. So to navigate on Friday, I think the one thing that you guys need to be really watching for is that you can fall into the sun in opposition to Uranus trap and you can get freaked out and there could be a lot of really dramatic financial things happening. Or you can shift into, okay, sun's trine Neptune. What is my gut telling me? Maybe it's not time to react. Mercury's still retrograde. The vibe though, when we have the moon in Sag, Mars in Sag, sun enters Sag, it's adventurous, but there's still a sense of feeling conflicted because Mercury and Venus are still in Scorpio. So we have to really focus on that shift that's happening to optimism, primarily in the evening. And I think that what this is teaching us, and the best way to navigate Friday, is acting on inspiration, maybe releasing control and exploring some new ideas. So we're then going to see, as we're moving into Saturday the 22nd, we wake up in the morning and the moon is in Sag. First thing in the morning on Saturday, the moon is going to be squaring Saturn and Neptune. Boy, would not want to be traveling or flying the 22nd, 23rd, 24th. I know things you guys don't want to hear, but that moon squaring the north and south node already says there's going to be some conflict and challenges revolving around getting places, particularly air travel. Then on the 22nd, on Saturday in the morning, the moon's going to square Saturn. So there is some delays, some blockages, some limitations, both in terms of movement, but also in terms of travel and our beliefs and philosophy and some emotional kind of like boundaries that we're coming up against. And then we will also see the moon star coming into a square with Neptune. Later in the evening, the moon will go into Capricorn. And I think the other thing to kind of focus on now is, Mercury, even though we're not focusing on Mercury, we're really looking at Jupiter, but Mercury is forming a trine to Jupiter. So go back to October when Mercury was in shadow, it was trining Jupiter. Everything's going to be great. Everything's going to be fine. And now Mercury's retrograde, Jupiter's retrograde. It's like, ooh, maybe it's not. Now we're in our feelings. We also see that Mercury is coming into a trine with Saturn. So communication definitely gets better. I would say after the new moon in Scorpio, once Mercury is trining Saturn in Pisces and Jupiter in Cancer, November 22nd on is better for, let me rewrite this, let me edit this, let me change my time schedule, my plan, all of this stuff. And maybe things are going to be a little bit more clear. And now maybe we're going to be feeling better now that we have kind of gotten things a little bit better organized. But in the morning, things don't feel so hot on Saturday. And obviously, I think the vibe with the moon and Sag squaring Saturn and Neptune, sure, it's dreamy, but there's also a lot of confusion, and there could be travel issues, and there could be weather-related issues. And then as the moon starts to shift into Capricorn later in the evening, I do feel like this is going to be a little bit easier because it becomes more practical, it becomes more work-oriented. It's also going to be something that's going to be earth, so it's going to feel more solid. So the morning doesn't feel so hot, pretty much right out the gate from, let's say, about 6 a.m. Central Time until the moon comes out of a square with Neptune, which, by the way, is at 29. Pretty much most of the day on Saturday. And then the moon goes into Capricorn. The energy is then going to shift. Now we're going to be focusing on Saturn. And now we feel the Saturn-Jupiter trine, where if we are a little bit more structured and aware of boundaries and we're showing up and committed, we can protect our emotions and our home. And we see that we're getting that trine kind of slightly still from Mercury to Saturn. So it's good for planning. So actually Saturday night, you may find that plans are more likely to go according to plan. Maybe if you are making some changes with work or changes financially, or maybe you're trying to kind of get some work done. If you're doing that on the weekends, you can definitely do that on Saturday. And then I would say Saturday is a day where don't expect everything to go according to plan in the morning. Plan ahead, trust your instincts over logic pretty much all week, but really that day. And focus on responsibilities when the moon shifts into Capricorn, because you're going to have better aspects that are going on with Saturn. And I think a lot of the Mercury trine Saturn is talking about the things that we're afraid to talk about, getting into the nitty-gritty of the details, and trying to, make decisions that are going to be best not only for us financially, Scorpio, but emotionally, right? Jupiter and Cancer. All right, this takes us into what's going to be Sunday, November 23rd. And in the morning, the moon is still in Capricorn. Nothing's changing with Saturn. Saturn is still in Pisces. It's going to go direct soon, but not yet. And we're not really seeing too many aspects going on with the moon. Eventually, throughout the day, we will start seeing the moon start coming into a sextile with the North Node in Pisces, and also in a trine with the South Node in Virgo. So clearing out old outdated ways of working, health-related matters, scheduling matters, and the moon coming into a sextile with the North Node in Pisces, I think is part of the working process, is knowing when to go enough is enough, not overdoing it, and being aware of our blind spots with Saturn retrograde. The key transit on Sunday is going to be the Sun in Sagittarius sextile Pluto in Aquarius. And this lends energy to optimism, traveling, education, learning, the bigger picture, and collectively all of us recognizing and realizing, because this is a closing sextile, that the future is about to change. And what is the future of Pluto in Aquarius? The internet, community connections, our goals, anything that deals with our friendships. And I feel like this can be a time where we can be learning a lot from other people. We can be maybe socializing and kind of planning for the future a little bit. We will also see that now Mars will enter 14 degrees. So it's going to be the same degree, which it will square the North and the South Node early next week. Now that'll be happening midday. So when Mars transits hit, they start hitting a little early. So it's safe to say on Sunday the 23rd, with Mars at 14 degrees, which is a Taurus degree, so it's about money, food, import, export of money, food, maybe stuff that's going to be coming up about farmers. I mean, I know we're hearing a lot about how we can stimulate, the U.S. Farming kind of groups, and how we can be, helping farmers, and maybe there's going to be decisions that are going to be made about farming and agriculture, whether or not we are, importing food, if we're letting other countries buy farmland. That's been a huge theme here. It can also be about international banking and what's going on with banking and whether or not we're starting to see things start to kind of separate and divide. Possibly, I think with Mars's connection to Jupiter, it's whether or not people are going to be feeling optimistic about the future of their own, current home or living situation, and if they feel like they have to take decisive action to potentially move or make a home change. But with Mars square the North and the South Node, this is Pisces, this is Virgo. It's definitely very much about what's going on with international jobs. So like something, for example, I can't remember what state it was, but I saw that there was what state was it? There was a state here that is finding ways to do a workaround the minimum wage for fast food employees, right? Okay, this is a food degree, so this is an example. And instead of paying them the set salary or I guess hourly wage, which is the new minimum wage for workers, they are now putting up screens in some restaurants and they are remoting in people from the Philippines where they're paying them $3.50 or whatever an hour. Literally, it's that low. It was like $3 and something. To be able to digitally check out customers. So they can run credit cards, they can confirm their order, it'll process the receipt. You're literally ordering through a screen. So that way they're working around having to not hire Americans or having not to pay a living wage. So that's the South Node in Virgo. That's like, well, it's breaking down work in the service industry. How? Importing jobs, Mars, right? Sagittarius. And that sextile to Pluto is, changing the way that we all collectively connect to each other, where we're working with somebody, dealing with somebody in another country. But also it's the kind of unfortunate dystopian future of Pluto and Aquarius that's like, well, we're not really connecting in a real way. And now Mars is squaring the North and the South Node. And so that's bringing up a Jupiter retrograde where some people are going to go, well, why am I living here? Do I want to be in this kind of dynamic or do I want to have a more interpersonal relationship? And like, how is this impacting my security or my jobs? It's also about things connected to a transport of food and goods, things that are connected to money and resources that are tied to people who are, from other countries. This is not politics, this is astrology. And that's what I love about this channel is that I don't want to just forecast the future. Of course, I want to help you guys and talk to you guys about what's going on so you can navigate. But when you want to learn astrology, you have to look at the transits in action in real time and we learn from it. And so a lot of it's going to be tied to food, service industry, jobs, and importing and exporting. I think that's going to be a huge theme. And whether or not there's more of it, and if that's actually really going to stimulate the growth that we need at home. Now, certainly there's something to be said about other countries going, well, yeah, it helps us, but we'll hear more about whether or not, people are being given visas or whether or not people are going to be, certain companies are going to be paying the fines, to hire people from other countries and how that's impacting people immigrating or being able to get sponsorship or visas. I think that's going to be part of this as well. So on Sunday, with that Sun sextile, Pluto and Aquarius, definitely more social, with Mars coming into a square with the North and the South Node, which you guys are going to be feeling Saturday night pretty much through about Tuesday of next week. It can bring up some intense. There could be some conflicts over money. There could be people who are, blowing things financially out of proportion, being too optimistic about money. Certainly some more risk-taking kind of behavior with finances. And then we will see that moon that's going to start trining the South Node and sextiling the North Node. And that's about dissolving things, where we're moving out of the routine way of service and work and health. Why? Because Saturn and Neptune, I don't care what anybody says, and I do my best to not react to comments and stuff on the channel. I understand people aren't always going to agree with me. That's fine. That's what makes the internet beautiful. But nobody can convince me that Saturn and Neptune in Pisces is not the shadow government. Nobody can. And I will debate anybody on this stage until the cows come home to prove me otherwise. Saturn, Neptune, and the North Node in Pisces, hands down, is literally this global economy or global governance that is trying to orchestrate a situation that is breaking down boundaries and borders internationally so everybody has to follow the same king. Who that is, I don't know. I don't want to know. But that's what it is. So when we see Saturn and Neptune back in this sign, and they're both retrograde, some people say the deep state, and I do believe in that. I think it's real. But we can't see it right now because it's retrograde. And so what we're going to have to watch is, well, what's going on with the courts? What's going on with trade? What's going to be happening? What's going on with, jobs? And thankfully, all of this is squaring Saturn and Neptune. So there could be some legal decisions. There could be some major publications. We could see some major professors, some people who are coming out and theorizing and talking about why it's not good. and why we need to start organizing things so countries can be self-governing. So they're not being influenced by foreign countries. So they're not giving aid to foreign countries. So they're not responsible for funding foreign wars, Mars, right? Be more focused on what's going on in your home country. And I think anybody, regardless of where you live, that's a really important thing. That if you resonate, if you're living in the country that you're born in, it's not, being a nationalist. It's having pride for your culture, where you come from, where you were born, and wanting to preserve that. And if you don't like it, then you also have the right to leave, right? And that's I think the beauty of Jupiter in Cancer. A lot of people are leaving. They're leaving countries, they're leaving cities, they're leaving communities. But you can't convince me that's not the deep state. There is an agenda to do this. And thankfully, with Saturn and Neptune going into Aries next year, even though it's gnarly, we are going to start seeing certain nations are going to have to be more independent. They're going to have to be more self-sustainable. They're going to have to be more reliant on, their own workers, their own communities, their own funds. And that means that it is going to have radical impacts for some countries, but also it can be really beneficial because some are actually going to thrive, I think, through being more independent. So on Sunday, I think that we can be feeling very ambitious. That's the positive of the Mars square. But watch out for the conflicts. Know that there is some change going on with power and dynamics. I also feel like to navigate Sunday, this is about taking calculated risks. This is also going to be about really aligning our actions with goals and really focusing on how we can be building towards the future. All right. Well, thank you for coming to my sermon. I'll get off my soapbox now. Let's do the 12 signs. Let's talk a little bit about where this grand water trine is kind of taking place with the Sun in Scorpio, with Jupiter in Cancer, and obviously Saturn in Pisces. You guys are going to see this astrology again in your lifetime, okay? Jupiter comes around every 12 years. The Sun and planets go through Scorpio every year, but Saturn and Neptune are never, ever in our lifetimes going to be in Pisces again. This is the beginning of the end, so it's time to wash it out. As always, I'm a Western astrologer. That's the kind of astrology I like to practice. I am not a Vedic astrologer, so I recommend listening for your Western whole sign rising. That's where you're going to get the most out of my predictions. And those of you guys who are Placidus users, you need to look at where 25 degrees of Scorpio is in your chart. So you may have to listen to more than one rising sign. And I say that really, really with this one, because it's at 25 degrees. So for some people, it's going to be like, actually, it's in another house. So you may benefit from listening to the next sign over to get the bigger picture. As a reminder, this is happening on the 17th. So on the 17th is when you're going to see the trine between the Sun and Jupiter. But the very next day, you're then going to see the Sun trine Saturn. So let's say 17th, 18th, 19th, that's really when you're feeling the trines and the impacts, which even blends into the new moon in Scorpio. If you have anything that's around 24, 25, 26 degrees of the water signs, this is impacting you big, but I think everybody's going to feel it. So listen to your rising sign to see exactly where in your life this is taking place. Listen to your sun sign to see how it's impacting your career and your overall vitality. Listen to your moon sign to see how it's impacting you emotionally. And I would also really, really recommend building some of these intentions and some of the stuff that's coming up with the trine into your new moon in Scorpio intentions, guys, okay? All right, so we're going to start first with my Aries and my Aries risings. I know you guys have been sitting here for the last hour nodding. So we've got the Sun going through Scorpio in your 8th house, and it's going to be forming a trine to Jupiter in Cancer in your 4th house, and it's also going to be forming a trine to Saturn in Pisces in your 12th house. So you have a grand water trine happening in water houses. Now, you're one of the signs, because it's in water houses, that it's not going to be as in your face, obvious. It's going to be more subtle, it's going to be more emotional, and it's going to be more cleansing and kind of purging. So for my Aries and Aries risings, you guys are going to find that this grand water trine that's taking place is really about a transformation in your shared resources. Some of you guys will experience growth in your home life. Others will be really structuring when it comes to your subconscious. And I predict for you guys throughout this week that there can be some financial boosts that can come from family or partnerships. This is also about healing any hidden fears that are coming up for you. I recommend checking out your 4th, 8th, and 12th house, seeing if you have any planets there. Definitely recommend making time to reflect on old wounds, taking some time alone, getting some extra rest, and investing in anything that's connecting to home or emotional security. All right, so we've got our Taurus and Taurus risings. What's up, Taurus? You're going to be experiencing the grand water trine from the Sun in Scorpio in your 7th house of relationships, to Jupiter in Cancer in your 3rd house of communication and learning, to Saturn in Pisces in your 11th house, which is going to deal with your goals and your friends. So you have got this grand water trine, which is emotional, in houses that are more social. This is more about the friendships that you have, the relationships that you have, the connections to your siblings and your community. And what you'll find with this grand water trine that's taking place this week is it's about depth in partnerships, the expansion that can come through communication with other people, and also some kind of discipline that you have when it comes to your spirituality and your networking skills. Now, Taurus, I predict that there could be deeper bonds with other people this week. Maybe there's going to be lucky talks. Maybe there's opportunities for learning or even traveling. Definitely see if you have any planets in your 3rd, 7th, or 11th house. And I encourage you to share your feelings openly and try to meditate to get clarity and connect with like-minded friends to help you achieve your goals. Now, for my Geminis and my Gemini risings, you guys are going to experience the Sun in Scorpio in your 6th house of work, habits, and routine, trining Saturn in Pisces in your 10th house of career, and also trining Jupiter in Cancer in your 2nd house of money and self-esteem. So you guys have water trines in houses that are very tangible, okay? So you'll see physical results, physically, financially, or work-wise, through a shift or a change in your emotions. So for my Geminis, I think that the themes that you guys are going to find is that there can be some intensity that can kind of be happening at work because of the trine specifically to your 6th house of schedule and obviously your daily habits to your 10th house of work and your career. But you'll find that this is going to produce some growth when it comes to your values, whether that's your finances or how you feel about yourself, and also help you better structure your dreams through reorganizing your schedule. So I predict that there can be job opportunities that are really tied to new skills that are coming up for you, and also be building self-worth emotionally throughout that process. Really focus on planets in your 2nd, 6th, and 10th houses, and I would be reviewing my daily routines and really nurturing my body and my habits to feel good about myself and also make some big changes when it comes to your career. And for my Cancers and Cancer risings, you guys are going to have to let me know what happens. We have got a transit where the Sun is moving through your 5th house of joy, creativity, romance, and fun. It's trining Saturn in the 9th house of education, travel, and also your philosophy about life or legal matters or anything connected to travel. And it's also trining Jupiter in your sign, which is coming back and trining the Sun. This is why I said that I think the water signs are going to really enjoy this and probably do a little bit better with this. But I'm really curious to see how this manifests for my Cancer risings, because I feel like so much of this is going to be about the power that is coming from your self-expression. It's about potential expansion in your identity and also discipline when it comes to travel, education, or your hopes and dreams. Now, I predict for Cancer and Cancer rising that some of you guys will find that there is some creative streak that comes up this week. Maybe you get lucky creatively. Maybe there is a breakthrough when it comes to children, self-expression, or dating. And personal growth feels very supported now, and it's all about you being your most authentic self. Now, definitely check your 1st, 5th, and your 9th houses to see if you have any planets there. I'd be focusing on travel, pursuing hobbies, and really focusing on setting some fun goals and getting creative in the process. For my Leos and Leo risings, this is going to be important for you guys too, because this does involve the Sun, and that is your chart ruler. And you will see the Sun in Scorpio going through your 4th house of home and family, is trining Saturn, your 8th house of change and joint assets. It's also forming a trine to Jupiter in Cancer in your 12th house of what is hidden and subconscious, and Jupiter's coming in for a trine with the Sun. Once again, so for the fire signs, this is very emotional for you guys, because not only is it water, but it's actually hanging out in water houses. So Leo, the themes of this grand water trine that's kind of taking place this week is really about healing at home, right? This happens to be the same area where we're having a Mercury retrograde, so I'd keep an eye on the new moon and the cazimi taking place, because where you're living, how you're feeling, likely impacts the future of your career and your status. But if you're healing at home and you're focusing on growth when it comes to your subconscious, your family, and really trying to, I think, build more structure when it comes to perhaps your joint finances, anything connected to your emotions, psychological related themes, travel, And finding that you are concluding or completing something at home that can actually be really therapeutic and healing emotionally, it can improve your finances with other people, and help produce opportunities for you to have more kind of self and spiritual realization. That's what you're going to be focusing on over the next week. Now, I think that family matters can resolve positively if there's been some home or family issues, and this can also help build inner peace. Look at your 4th, 8th, and 12th houses to see if you have any planets there. Really focus on decluttering your space right now and trying to connect spiritually or getting into a spiritual routine so you can really have the full effects of that kind of clearing. Good luck. For my Virgo and Virgo risings, you guys are going to be experiencing the sun in Scorpio moving through your 3rd house of communication, learning, and travel. It'll trine Saturn and Pisces in your 7th house of relationships, and Jupiter in Cancer in your 11th house of friendships, which is also trining the transiting sun. So Virgo, you have got these water trines happening in houses that are more social. It's about kind of connecting with your goals, talking to other people, traveling, and learning. Now for you guys, this is going to be bringing up themes connected to depth in communication. Obviously, you're in the midst of a Mercury retrograde, so you're feeling how you're communicating differently with other people, whether that's siblings, family-related matters, or anything revolving around the home or travel. But you may find that it also produces opportunities to communicate better in relationships and expand in your partnerships, and also find that it's bringing you more growth when it comes to your goals and also your friendships. Now, I predict for you guys that there could be meaningful talks that do lead to growth in relationships, and you might find that certain relationships can strengthen. I'd be focusing on my 3rd, my 7th, and my 11th house if you have any planets there. I would be also listening actively, maybe, making some plans to kind of connect with friends, to, meet with other people, whether that's travel related, or if there's any plans or things that you need to kind of prepare for when it comes to changes within the home. Talking that over with the 7th house person, like your, therapist, your astrologer, your spouse, or even your friends, can help you get a better idea of exactly where you're going. All right, for my Libras and my Libra risings, you guys are going to be experiencing the sun in Scorpio moving through your 2nd house of money and finances, personal self-esteem and security. It's trining Jupiter in Cancer in your 10th house of career, and also Saturn in Pisces, which is connected to your daily routines, health, and habits. So as with all the other air signs, Libra, these water trines are taking place in houses that are a little bit more earthly. So how you feel definitely impacts how much money you make, how productive you are, and also how successful you are at work. So Libra, the themes here with this transit is really intensity with money. It's also going to be producing some growth at work, and I think some structure when it comes to your career and your daily routines. Now, I predict for Libra that there can be some intuitive hits that come up about finances this week that if you listen can really pay off. It's also possible that job security and health improves and you're feeling more optimistic about your career. Check your 2nd, 6th, and 10th houses to see if you have any planets in the water signs. Just make sure that you are budgeting emotionally and you're taking into consideration what you do and do not need. I would also really encourage you guys to be more optimistic when it comes to communicating at work and trying to stick to a routine. Good luck. For my Scorpio and Scorpio risings, you guys will be experiencing the sun moving through your sign, forming a trine to Jupiter in Cancer in your 9th house of travel, education, and beliefs. Also forming a trine to Saturn in Pisces in your 5th house of romance, creativity, and self-expression, and children. Coming back into a trine with the sun in your sign. Woof. I got a lot of Scorpio risings in my life. I've been watching a lot of them spin out. I know it's been difficult, but I think that now you're getting ready to reach a turning point. I think that when you have these water trines happening in houses that are traditionally associated with fire, it means that your emotions are putting something into action. So Scorpio, the themes for this water trine is going to be power in your identity. It's also about really expansion when it comes to creativity, romance, and children. And you're going to find that there's opportunities for you to really focus on joy, travel, and what you're learning about the bigger picture of life. Now, the good news is that I predict this is going to enhance your personal magnetism. This will also potentially bring in some luck when it comes to self-expression or romance. And I'd be looking at my 1st, 5th, and 9th houses to see if I have any planets there. But if you're somebody who's creative, it's time to share your art or maybe even your story. This is about exploring whether that's new philosophies or potential travel. And I do think that this is going to be a moment of rebirth and figuring out who you are and what's going to make you happy. Scorpio, I hope it's a good one for you. Let me know what happens. For my Sag and Sag risings, obviously this is an important transit for you guys, as we will see planets that are aspecting Jupiter, which is your chart ruler. Now, Jupiter is hanging out in Cancer. It is retrograde in the 8th house. So currently you are likely reflecting on changes with homes, psychological shifts, financial related themes, letting go, making changes when it comes to even your family, and learning to be a little bit more vulnerable. Now, we're going to see this week the sun is going to move through Scorpio in your 12th house of kind of completions and endings and things relating to self-sabotaging behavior and also being behind the scenes. It's going to form a trine to Jupiter in Cancer in your 8th house. It's also going to form a trine to Saturn in Pisces in your 4th house, which is going to come back to a trine with the sun in Scorpio in your 12th. For my fire signs, this is particularly emotional. You've got water trines and water houses, and these houses mean something has to conclude or kind of wrap up. Now, obviously, I think for my Saggies, this is about the depth of what's going on behind the scenes, okay? Are you scorping out? Are you hiding out? Are you self-sabotaging? Or are you finding that there's a lot more depth when it comes to your subconscious and you're finally purging and detoxing things that you've been holding on to for a very long time? If you can really navigate this appropriately, you'll find that there could be lots of opportunities for growth at home and also more structure when it comes to your joint finances, as well as your intimacy and vulnerability. I predict for Sag risings that this is all about healing your inner world this week. And family expansion is possible, but it is really testing your issues regarding vulnerability. Focus on your 4th, 8th, and 12th houses. See if you have any planets there. Certainly if you're somebody who is working in therapy with someone, or if you are focusing on meditation, maybe you're doing some retreat work, or maybe you're just taking time to kind of still turn within in the midst of this retrograde. I think it could be beneficial for you, and you may find that when you're kind of clearing all of the decks mentally, it's going to give you the appropriate kind of ability to set new intentions as we're getting into next month, especially as we're getting closer to the Sagittarius new moon. I would also say that with Venus and, Mercury retrograde, Venus in your 12th and Mercury retrograde, there's a lot of changes going on in relationships. And I think there's a lot of Sagittarius who are kind of going, who am I? If I'm getting out of a relationship or I'm changing something about my relationship, or do I really need support and can I do it alone? And a lot of it's financial and a lot of it's also home and family related. So I think right now it's time to really listen to your gut and your intuition more than usual. Recognize and realize where some of these changes, which may feel like endings, can actually be very beneficial for you in the long run. Good luck. For my Capricorns and Capricorn risings, you guys are going to be experiencing the sun going through Scorpio in your 11th house of goals, friends, and allies, trining Jupiter in your 7th house of relationships, and also Saturn, your chart ruler, in the 3rd house of communication and the mind. Capricorn, I like this for you. I like this for you a lot. Not just because it's trining Saturn, but also because Jupiter is trining Saturn, so relationships can actually grow and evolve and thrive. What you will find for the themes this week is obviously there is a huge focus in needing to surround yourself by either new friends, changes with your goals, new connections, reconnecting with people, and you will be able to have expansion when it comes to communication as well as your relationships. So I predict for you that there can be deep connections that can be formed this week. It's all a matter of just kind of keeping an open heart and a willingness to communicate and rethink something about your goals. It's also possible that relationships can really help you fulfill some of your goals, and education and travel are somehow tied into that. I would be checking my 3rd, 7th, and my 11th houses to see if there's any planets there natally. Really find that it's important for you guys this week to communicate your needs, and I think also build healthier habits when it comes to relationships with others, including neighbors or siblings, and getting back out there socially and finding ways to feel inspired by people who are around you, who are wanting to support you and also wanting to collaborate with you in some way. The key here is remaining open because Saturn is retrograde. So keep an eye out for those friends that are calling or texting, or people who are reaching out to you or kind of making plans to kind of help you figure out a game plan for the future. All right, and we have got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You guys are next. You're going to find the sun going through Scorpio in your 10th house of career. is coming into a trine with Saturn, your traditional ruler, in Pisces in your money house, and Jupiter in Cancer in your 6th house of health, habits, and daily routine. So you've got water trines happening in what are traditionally earthly houses. So how you feel is going to impact the money you're making, your health, and also your work and your career. Obviously, all of these transits this week in opposition to Uranus can bring up a lot of home and family changes, but also it can bring some new restructuring when it comes to your self-esteem. So roll with the punches. I think that this is about your power at work and changes and transformations that's happening with your work or your career, and that can lead to growth and potential for more money, but also reworking or restructuring something about your office space, your health, or your routine. Now, I predict for my Aquarius risings that there can be major career insights that can happen this week that can actually lead to making you feel more stable when it comes to your finances and also yourself, your confidence. It'll help you restructure your self-worth and maybe even potentially get into a new workspace. Now, I think that it can bring you career insights that are going to lead to long-lasting stability. I think there could be some financial luck for you guys. Obviously, take a look at where you're having planets, if you have any natal planets in the 2nd, 6th, or 10th houses. But right now, this week is all about valuing your skills and organizing your finances as well as your daily habits. And for my Pisces and Pisces risings, this is significant for you guys because obviously we're going to be seeing not only are there trines happening to Saturn in your 1st house of self, but the Sun in Scorpio in the 9th house of travel, education, legal matters, beliefs is trining your traditional ruler, Jupiter, in the 5th house of love, romance, and creativity. So we've got a very powerful water trine that is setting up for you that's making aspects to a lot of very personal planets. Pisces, I think that this is really about the depths of your beliefs, what new intentions that are coming up for you in terms of how you approach change or how you approach education or even travel. Maybe this is about growth that is coming within yourself and obviously structures revolving around dating, joy, creativity, self-expression that's all kind of playing out for you. I predict for my Pisces and Pisces risings that this is a week that's going to promote a lot of spiritual growth, a lot of reevaluations of what's going to make you the happiest, and I think personal expansion will come easy if you're staying committed to yourself and your goals. Focus on any natal planets you have in your 1st, 5th, or 9th houses, and this is a good time to travel or learn and express yourself creatively. Opportunities for long-distance relationships, publishing, anything revolving around storytelling, and teaching your philosophy to other people in a creative way can also be really beneficial this week. Definitely let me know, Pisces. I want to hear how this manifests for you guys too. So with that being said, that was the astro weather for the week. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful in helping you navigate the week ahead. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, for liking, commenting, and subscribing. Do come back, leave me some comments. Let me know how some of these predictions hit for you and what you experience along the way. And definitely subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of these videos, especially if you found it helpful. Consider sharing on your socials. While you guys are there, follow me on X at BTVAstro. Until then, I will see you guys all here next week, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Take care.